As we're all aware, we have been facing over the last several months the difficulties caused by the virus. It seems to be an age, but in reality here in America at least, the first real awareness that we needed to start taking measures came in the second week of March, which is less than 3 months ago. So less than 3 months ago, our world turned itself upside down. If 6 months ago any of us had said that we were going to be facing an immediate problem that would cause us all to have to stay home and not go to our jobs and completely change the way we interacted with each other, people would have thought that person was stark raving mad. But now we've seen the power of the forces in the universe that are here basically to help create corrections in man's consciousness. Everything that we face, the virus, the economic ramifications of it, the difficulties around the world. Here in America, we are facing also a crisis of conscience about our suppression of minorities, and especially our oppression, and many times hidden oppression of blacks and other minorities in this country. But these seem to be all separate issues. In fact, Swami Kriyananda used a very good illustrative example. He said, if you see a bunch of islands that are in the ocean relatively near each other, you think of each island being separate. Let's say the Hawaiian Islands. Most people are familiar with them. You see a series of islands separated by the sea, and each has its own name and its own separate identity, and they all seem separate. But he said it's like the fingers of one hand, and the water level is high enough so that we can't see that there's an underlying root cause. If you drain the water, you see that all of these islands are connected, and they're part of one landmass. So all of these problems that we're facing are connected, and they're part of one mass consciousness correction that needs to happen. Why do we have the virus? Yogananda said that a virus, a pandemic, he was talking about the 1918 flu that killed millions of people around the world. He said that that was caused by the negative thought patterns of mankind that were awakened during the First World War. And so we now have negative thought patterns that have resulted in a virus that is affecting us on a physical level. Those negative thought patterns have not been only warfare and conflict, but they have been greed, they have been an uncaring attitude toward the environment, toward the planet that we all share, toward other people living on this planet. We have purposely separated ourselves into islands and tried to raise the water level to keep other people out. That is simply not going to work. The universe will not allow separation to continue. And we, as warriors of light, must change our consciousness in order to be an influence to change the consciousness of others. And so, toward the virus, toward the environmental impacts, toward the economics, the economic ramifications of this, but also now toward the suppression of people of different skin colors, of different beliefs, of different nationalities, the separation and warfare. The universe is giving us a very, very clear message. The universe, God, is telling us this must end. And if you cannot end it peacefully, then I will send forces into the world that will make you change your behavior. So our behaviors have already changed. Most of us have experienced lockdown and social distancing and separation. So those behaviors have changed according to the force of something outside of ourselves. But my friends, that is not enough. The consciousness that caused those behaviors, that's what needs to change. And so you and I have a very, very important role to play at this time, which is, first of all, to raise our own personal consciousness, and then to act actively, not passively, actively, as an influence to help raise the consciousness of those immediately around us, meaning those that we contact in our personal lives, and then from there to serve as we're doing now, as we have been every once a week, Thursday morning here in America, but on Thursdays around the world, to serve as channels of light, to bring that light into the world, to help calm, to help heal, to help uplift, and as we do in our affirmation, to help replace hatred with love, disease with health. And so let us go forth really redoubling our efforts as warriors of light.
I also want to share some thoughts about how we can understand and approach the changes, the crises of racial discrimination and hatred going on in the world today. We were born for these times. I was talking to some friends last night, and they were saying they all have children who are 18, 19 years old, and they were all born right after 9/11. So that's when they chose to incarnate. And this is the world they came into, a world, one of the people is a person of the children are black. And she was explaining to us how they live in Los Angeles, how her son and a friend went to play baseball at a park near their home, and the police stopped them because he had a baseball bat and a glove, and really threatened him and intimidated him. It's time for this to stop, friends. God is not pleased, as Master said during the Depression about rich people and poor people. He said, God is not pleased when his rich children take advantage of his poor children. God is not pleased when those in power take advantage of those without power. And now a new kind of power is arising, and I believe it will be implemented in the world by the new generation that's coming up. But this new kind of power is not a power of guns and tear gas and blustering politicians trying to protect their own power base. This new kind of power is soul power. It's the power that Gandhi used when he liberated India. It's the power that Martin Luther King used to bring to greater awareness the civil rights movement and the prejudice of that time. It is the power of the divine within us, of the divine consciousness, the divine conscience that dwells within each one of us. Even those perpetrators of cruelty and violence and death, on some level their soul knows that what they're doing is wrong. And what we must do now, friends, is to stand in that power of the soul force, as other great leaders have done. Gandhi said at one point in his amazing liberation of India, he said, think of it, there have been dictators and rulers who seemed invincible, and yet in the end they all fell. Because human power is just the most, it's based on nothing. It has no reality. But soul power, the power of Dharma, of truth, of divine love, of universal embracing of everyone as your brother and sister. This is the most powerful force in the world. And so now, my friends, I invite you to join us in awakening that soul power within you, and in whatever way you feel is appropriate in your life to work towards that. Maybe it's political action, maybe it's simply voting, maybe it's simply meditating. Whatever you feel is your dharma to do. Now is not the time to be idle. Now is the time to work with the power of God to transform this world. Join us in this effort, and in our lifetime, let us pray that we will see a new dawn where people of all colors can embrace each other without fear, without hatred, standing in the power of God's love. Thank you.